Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sankofa Video Books and Cafe. I'm Christina Joy, your events coordinator extraordinaire and social worker, accompanied by a fellow social worker and fellow Howard alumni, Leah Hairston. Oh, y'all are great. That was a applause. Surprise me. How y'all doing today?
Doing good.
Thank y'all for coming out in this little rainy weather. We don't ever know what's going to happen with DMV. It's like, we can think it's sunny one day, the next day you come out, and you got to wear your raincoat and your rain boots, and you're like, wow, okay.
Well, stay prepared.
Pretty much. Stay ready out here. So today we have Leah Hairston. She's an MSW. You have an extra S on your MSW.
I do. So that's just science and social work.
Oh, let them know.
Yes.
Yeah, I was like, because I noticed that. I was like, I got an MS, but you got an MS.
I'm a macro social worker.
Okay. I see you. Direct practice right here. You know what I'm saying? Look, so Leah Hairston is a doula, a social worker, and advocate. She educates and empowers women with female reproductive systems, reminding them of their inherent power. Her dedication to facilitating spaces for healing, equal access, and justice stems from her deep commitment to addressing the systemic injustices against Black women. She is the founder of Sweet Pea Services, a Baltimore-based doula agency that provides justice-focused trauma, family-centered care. Leah is a graduate of Roland Park Country High School, Howard University, and Columbia University. She is also an instructor and mentor with the National Black Doula Association. When not working, Leah enjoys trying new recipes while listening to audiobooks, walking her pup, T'Challa, how cute, and savoring moments with loved ones. She is passionate about all things related to babies, reproductive wholeness, and social justice. Learn more and support her work by visiting sweetpeadoula.com. Like, this is really good. And this coloring book, this is so cool. Like, first of all, I need y'all to look online if you watch it. Like, let's get a little taste. And everyone here who's here, this is an affirmation. It's an affirming coloring book. So there is a difference here.
Most coloring books, like you pick them up and you color in the pictures, you keep it moving. It is about mindfulness. But I believe in the power of our words, and I wanted to make sure that people who are navigating pregnancy, navigating postpartum, have a space where they can put words to their story that affirm them and that give them hope. Because a lot of my clients are scared that they're going to die, that they'll have complications. Wow. And yes, those are real statistics, but that doesn't have to be their story.
Right. Yeah, I know that's right. Okay. Because I tell you, as soon as, one, I want to backtrack a little bit. What led you to the path of Black reproductive health care? Like, let's start there.
So I'm a Black woman. I also have 3 phenomenal sisters, and when I heard the statistic that Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die of childbirth with any complications, it made me think like, well, then which one of us is going to have to die? And that didn't sit well with me. So I was like, if there's something I can do to fix that, let me do that. And I decided to go to Howard to become an OBGYN. And Dr. Gordon in my freshman biology class made it very clear not all of us were going to make it to medical school because this is a lot of work. And I said, you know what, that's fine. You can kick me out of the sciences, the hard sciences, because I really want to think about people's minds. I really am curious about what is it that we are exposed to that shifts our ability to navigate life. And so I studied trauma, and especially sexually based traumas against Black and brown women, and how we can heal from those traumas in a communal setting. And that led me to work in crisis at a crisis center for women and families facing intimate partner violence. And that led me to social work school where I found my doula training. And so simultaneously, as I was becoming a social worker and developing my ability to help nonprofits thrive, both for their staff and their communities, I was trained as a doula and was helping people navigate birth and postpartum. And I served 8 clients in my first summer. I was like, oh, I love this. What are the clients? And it was the most exhilarating, most fulfilling thing I had ever done in my life. And I was in my early 20s, so people were like, oh, you look like a baby yourself. I was like, that's fine. I'm gonna tell this doctor that you can't touch this person, and I'm gonna help this client figure out how to navigate foster care for their children. I'm gonna help people figure out how to navigate language barriers. And in that process of advocating for people and with people, I found fulfillment. And so I said, you know what, I'm gonna do this the rest of my life. And that's how I dedicated my life to reproductive justice.
Wow. Wow.
Well, amazing. Yes, y'all are a great audience. I just need y'all to know that, like, nobody has ever been this boisterous. But what's interesting about that is, like, me as in the sense of you know, getting thrown into the helping profession, especially as a young person. You know, we're fresh out of undergrad. We're just navigating whatever is next, and you know, you're serving people that are either around your age or older than you, and they're looking at you like, well, how are you supposed to help me? So, how did you navigate that feeling? Because I know that feeling for me when I was just working with doing community support work, and I'm like 22, and my clients are like 23, and they're like, girl, how you about to help me out?
I think part of it is I have always been in positions of being the other. And so I'm very comfortable being on the outside and being conscientious of what it feels like to be on the outside. And that allows me in many ways to be like, all right, it's fine if I'm not supposed to fit whatever, because I'm gonna do what I need to do. And then the other part of that is that I know I'm called to be a doula. That is part of why I'm on this earth, is to make sure that people have support when they need it the most. And so I tend to be a more like relaxed, observant kind of person, but if you mess with my clients, it's a different kind of story. And that, I think, is in many ways part of my spiritual work, is that I get an extra bit of energy to wake up at 2:30 in the morning and rush to the hospital, or to hold a pregnant person in the midst of a contraction and help them navigate that, help people bring their children into this world. And also to help people navigate loss. I have clients who have given birth to babies that aren't breathing, and we knew that baby wasn't going to have a heartbeat. And what does that look like to support someone in that experience? What does it look like to sit with a person trying to feed their child at 4 in the morning, and they got sleep in their eye, and this baby's crying, and they feel like they're on the brink of, of never having a solution. And so being able to decenter myself from the work so that I can do this for people allows me to do it. And I think in many ways I became a doula so that when it was my turn, I would have poured into the community enough that I would have built up the resources enough to not have the experiences that statistics say I should have.
Oh, I like that. I like that, because you're giving the study, right? You're giving the qualitative and quantitative data that we need because we don't have enough data on Black women to help Black women. Like, that's period. You know?
We do.
But
we have the data. We have our lived experiences. We have our stories. It is also backed by 30 years of qualitative and quantitative research that the greater universities and research industries would want us to have. But we're not listening. And that's what the issue is. We've been screaming since the beginning of time. It's time for people to open their ears.
That's a good point. I mean, wow. I guess I think of it in the sense of like the accessibility to our data has always been under lock and key.
Yes.
And so it's like, even within, my own program at Howard, we learn from different, you learn from different theorists, you learn from different texts, and we are lucky in the sense that we are getting this supplemental insertion of like content that is relevant to our experience. But even in that, like, it's only limited by what's available to the professor. And people who, and for myself, being in this program, but also working in a bookstore and realizing that there were a lot of books out here, like the Black Women's mental health book, that book, or the Black Women's Public Health book, like those books and more, and Under the Skin, like all these, I'm like, girl, we've been here. Linda Holmes, I've been
telling the story.
you know, like, oh, you're absolutely right, like, but it's like there's this, I feel like there's this disconnect in terms of, you know, people in our spaces, the academics, the professionals, and then the general community that's not actually getting any of this information at all.
And I think that's where I toe the line. And I tell my clients, like, I am very much so a proponent of using Eastern and traditional and indigenous practices matched with innovative technologies in medicine. There are times when we need medicine. There are times when we need a C-section. But the likelihood of that is far less when we have built into our care and our health needs practices that honor our bodies. And that's a very traditional, indigenous, Eastern mindset. And so when we're able to bring those two together and be that bridge, it's like, okay, if I need certain interventions, I have Western medicine to rely on. But I will know I will need them when I'm in tune with myself and I use what I have. And I think oftentimes, like, the research that is approved from a medical political standpoint does not honor Black and brown and indigenous experiences, or just other in general experiences, because it doesn't look like the pathway that was requested for how that study should be done. It doesn't mean it's any less valid. And so I think it's important for us to honor that when we get to use our voices, that's the way that we validate the research. The research should not validate our experience should validate the research.
Mic drop on that. That is very real, because, you know, it's we are within this white power structure, and the way that we think about things is that we need to validate them outside of ourselves first. And that is the number one thing that they tricked us into believing, is that our experiences are invalid, so you have to confirm it. And I think that mindset is hard to get out of, because it is a natural, like, exactly. We're all indoctrinated in this way, and so it's like, oh no, you're absolutely right.
And that's how you unlock your power. Like, that's why we tell our clients, we educate, equip, embolden, empower. I want my clients to walk away feeling like, I did that. I know what's going on. I spoke up for myself. I advocated. I created what I needed and wanted. And you're able to do that when you recognize you already have the power. But if you are looking for other people to affirm you or to tell you that you have the ability to do that, that's where we have to do a lot of the mindfulness work and a lot of the deconstructing to be able to recognize I have the power, I have the knowledge, I have the insight. You have the experience of being in this field and have studied, and I appreciate that. And it has to be matched with my knowledge. It's not greater than mine.
Ooh. Ooh.
I mean, I don't need you to run that one back. Yeah, just run it back.
It has to be matched.
It has to.
Otherwise, what are we doing? Then you're overpowering me, then we're back into a system that discredits me and dishonors me, and that is not that doesn't help anybody. That's why we see the statistics that we see.
That part.
Lack of multiple viewpoints
Yes.
is what we are all suffering from.
Yeah.
You know, and the fact that, you know, even deeper, even with not just within Black women, the research on women,
Period.
that it has been astronomically low in the sense of knowing how to solve our problems.
From a standpoint that's informed by our experiences. Like, if you even think about, in general, reproductive justice and care, birth control and period, it was only in 2021, 2022 that period products were tested with actual menstrual blood. So the products that most people use for their periods have been tested with saline solution. How am I supposed to be able to truly tell if that's going to be an appropriate product for me and match what my body needs if it's based on saline solution? So things like that, very nuanced concepts and questions that, as women and people with uteri, I call them people with uterine holding bodies, when we get to inform the research, when we get to inform the policy, when we get to inform the practice, it is based off of our lived experiences, and it honors those experiences and our needs in ways that we only know because we live in these bodies. And that's part of what we do as doulas. It's like, no, you know what's going on. You know when your last period was, and if you don't, we can figure it out. You know what XYZ part of your experience is or that you want. And a lot of times what I find in the Why We Have Educate is our first thing is that people walk around with a lot of knowledge that they're not tapped into. And so when we have the keys to say like, oh, this is a sign for my body that I'm thirsty. This is a sign for my body that I'm hungry. This is a sign for my body that I'm tired, and we honor those needs. Now you feel like, oh, I know myself, I know what I need, I know how to advocate with other people and bring folks onto my team who will support me in that.
Wow. I know that's right. The village. The village is necessary. And you know, they've done so much to take us away from the village. But you know, at the same time, I will say that maybe now, and that may be from my own lens as someone who's always looking for the mental health in something. In the shows that I'm watching, like the idea of chosen family has become a big theme, and you know, especially for single parents and not even just single parents, for two parent units that just need support, because this idea that you had to have this micro family and the nuclear family, as they call it, that is not African. It's not inherently African. We are a family having system. Like we're matrifocal. Like we have everybody's auntie and uncle is really mama and daddy too. And so like now I feel like we're being pushed more back to our roots in a lot of senses. You know, like do you feel like you've noticed that push as well in terms of not even just the village, but also you spoke to ancestral medicine earlier.
Yeah. I often tell my clients that a lot of things, but one of them is that I believe in incorporating your community. And so your community could look like your biological family, your chosen family, and chosen family means auntie, uncle, cousin, and concubine, as we call them in my family. But also your neighbor. It could be a coworker. It could be, the person you connect with from some meetup. Those are the people that are part of your community, and you choose to include them or not include them. There are times where including biological family members is detrimental to mental health. That's just a fact. And so I often will tell clients, okay, well, if you feel like there's no way to not have them involved, give them a very specific task and a specific timeline, and ask them to honor those boundaries. And especially if they're a first-time parent, like just blame it on hormones. I'm going to be a new-time parent. It's going to be a lot for me. If you could do this, I would really appreciate it. And we have found that this actually repairs relationships with estranged family members, because they're like, wow, I've just been wanting to be included and you never really wanted me around. And it's like, well, actually, I wanted you around, but I didn't want you in these regards. And so I think that's a social work for me too, is like, let's have this conversation this way.
Yes.
So that people feel included. But we cannot do this alone. Like you should not have to do this alone. It is possible to put yourself through the ringer for the rest of your life to be a parent on your own, but that's not how we were designed to function as human beings. We need community. And even if it's not, like I said, your biological community, you still need people who are with you, who see you, who understand you, who can support you. We're not all strong in the same things. And so I need people who are strong in my weak areas and people who are strong in their weak areas, so we can do this thing called life together. And that, I think, is a beautiful aspect of being a doula, especially as a birth doula, is that there's a time in each person's labor experience where they can't do anything for themselves. They often can't speak because they're in this transformative period of like pulling all the energy to push this baby out. And so they might be moaning and groaning, and it's on behalf of them that we communicate. Where it's like, do you need to move position? Okay, let's shift you here. But if I'm so in tune that I've been watching them for the last 17 hours, I know when they're ready to move. I know when they need some water. And if I'm a part of their community, I think it's our job as community members to be attuned to each other's needs. It's not always our job to go outside of our ability to meet other people's needs, but if I care about you, be like, hey, would this be helpful? And vice versa.
I love that. I'm like, you just took me to the zone. I was like, dang, That must be deep, like, especially because labor is a long time. It can be a long time. I mean, I know I was born in a snowstorm in 1993.
wow.
Like, and my mom went in on May 2nd. I came out May 3rd. So, I mean, March 2nd. My bad. We're in May. Yeah. Look, so it's just like, one, the spiritual experience of birth. How does that impact you?
First, it's exhausting. Even as a non-birthing person, like being in the space, just being on for 40 hours plus is what's exhausting. Because I often tell people doulas are like griots. And so while I'm in the space, I'm taking notes, I'm writing down what's happening, I'm observing, I'm holding space, I'm making sure the dad is included, I'm making sure the grandparents are involved, keeping certain people out who don't need to be there. That orchestration is exhausting. On top of that, I'm physically lifting people, moving people, standing in weird positions to talk to them, squatting, it's on your nose. It's physically taxing. And it requires time to recover afterwards, even for people who are not giving birth. And so those things have to be kept in mind, but it's one of the most rewarding things I've ever done because I get to watch people become a new person. And so in that time of them in labor, they are literally birthing themselves as parents. They're birthing new life. And so watching somebody who, and I have over 100 clients, so I have folks who've been like, I don't think I'm gonna make it through this pregnancy. Like, this baby's about to take me out. I don't have the energy. I can't eat anything. I can't move. I'm in pain all the time. And then I see them give birth, and then I see them navigate postpartum, and now I see them at a 2-year-old's birthday party or a 5-year-old's birthday party, and they are proud of themselves and elated and navigating different parts of the journey. And so being in many ways ingratiated into folks' families for this time frame is an honor. And thank you for trusting me to make sure that you make it through safely.
Right.
Wow.
So I love it.
Wow.
Beautiful. Like, oh, for the, yes. Oh, yeah. And I was also gonna ask, do you feel like the social worker aspect has really helped the doula and vice versa? And
Yes.
how does that look like career-wise versus like other social workers?
Yeah, I think because I am a social worker, the same way that I am a doula, my personality matches the need to see a person within a system, and those two things is connected. So I don't ever see just a person, I don't ever see just a system, I see everything in between. And my questions.
A person in the environment.
And the environment, that's what you say. So I always am asking questions about the person from the standpoint of what resources do you have, what resources do you need, and how can I match you to those? And I think that's part of what makes and I have an agency, and so what makes our agency different is that our mindset and our perspective is to match people to the resources they need and have as many of those in-house as possible, so that we're a one-stop shop. Because I was calling a pelvic floor physical therapist, and I was calling a nutritionist, and I was calling a yoga instructor, calling a massage therapist, calling a lactation counselor. And some of those things I was like, I'll just do that. I'll become a lactation counselor, I'll become a childbirth educator, I'll become a placental encapsulator. But I can't do everything for my clients. And as a social worker, I learned about the importance of boundaries to prevent burnout. And doulas have a burnout rate that's so high that most people don't last in our career longer than 2 years.
What?
2 years.
Wow. Wow.
I've been here 4 times as long. So to make it that long,
I know that's right.
pause.
Right.
We need to grow slowly. We need to call people. We need to bring in resources. There are times where I'll be like, I can't take a client right now, and every bone in my body wants to take that client.
Right.
But I also know if I take you, I'm not going to give you the right quality of care that you deserve. So let me call someone else. Let me find. That's why I started teaching and mentoring doulas. I was like, I need more people.
Right.
We need more people who can do it this way because this is needed. I think also because I'm a social worker, I ask questions, like I said, I ask questions a certain way. I see the landscape in a certain way. But being a doula has allowed me to be a better social worker because I recognize that in social work, we're taught to be very clinical and very distant You can't be distant as a doula. You won't build rapport. You won't have people's trust. And folks were like, "Oh, do you have a family?" Yes. Like my social work answer is yes. You can't know about my personal life. You can't know about the person behind the services I'm providing. As a doula, nobody wants to talk to you if that's your answer every time. And so learning how to build relationship was something that my doula work has informed my social work much better. And it's something I've always liked to do, but being able to do it in a way that appreciates trauma-informed care, appreciates a trauma-informed lens and a justice-centered lens, but also can build relationship in a way where I feel appropriately attached to clients and can still navigate that transition away from service to now friend or doula and community member is something that I really needed for my doula career to influence my social work career.
Man, because they really tell us, be caring.
Don't say anything.
No, like they said, you don't say nothing. You don't talk to these people. You don't hug these people. You just can't be a full person with the other person that you're trying to serve. And it's very
It's hard. It's very hard because you have to turn off a part of yourself, which that was helpful to learn how to do. And as being a doula, it's like you do need to turn off a part of yourself, but you don't turn it off fully. You just read it a little bit to focus on the other person. But in social work, you want me to not say anything when I'm in these people's houses for hours at a time? That's
I'm saying,
weird.
First of all, you got us going up in these people's houses.
For months, I work with people for 9 months.
Yeah.
You want me to work with them for 9 months and they know nothing about me? And then you expect me to have more trust than they have in the medical system? It doesn't work that way.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Especially even working directly with kids. It's really hard to detach in a way that is quote unquote appropriate for social work. Because kids are affectionate. Kids are gonna look up to you and they're gonna ask you weird questions. So
This is who my babies.
Right on. Right. So we get it, having that training, but then being in the field, so different. And you really don't get it until you're out there this is not the thing. This is not what we were learning in class. No, they didn't tell us this part. They told us why this person is here, and they told us how to figure out why this person is here, but they didn't tell us how to keep this connection and keep their trust. And be that person that they actually need, not this figure.
And to walk alongside somebody, not have all the answers. Because I think that in many ways is detrimental, and that the social work pathways can be the same. It can cause the same sort of harm as medical pathways when we take on that stance. But if we're able to say, I don't have all the answers, but I'm here to help you figure out what answers you need. And I'm walking with you. I'm not greater than, I'm not less than, but I am your equal. And how can we do this together? That makes such a big impact. And for you as a practitioner, as a clinician, as a healthcare worker, that allows you to still maintain your humanity and your personhood in the work that you're doing.
Because so let me open up the questions for the audience, because clearly we've been up here for a second having this conversation. We just chatting we are classmates. So does anyone have any questions for Leah?
Thank you. Hi, Leah. Thank you for being here and doing this for us. My question is specific to, I imagine you come across women who are dealing with, some things might be mental, some things might be physical or ailments or medical conditions. If you can speak a little bit to people or a lot of women who, either for reasons of not having a support system or dealing with trauma, how that can impact your experience and how having a doula can help meet those needs.
Our practice is to be trauma informed, which means that we recognize, even if someone doesn't have a medical diagnosis of trauma, what I call big T traumas, they're listed in the DSM, they qualify as like they might be traditional medicinal support. Everyone has little T traumas. And so I could walk away from a birth experience that's the exact same as Christina's, and she could feel totally fine, and I could be like, that was traumatic for me, I need this to never happen again. Or I could have an encounter with a medical provider, or with not having the right support from my team, or any of those things that could lead me to feel like this was jarring and wrong, and I need some help around it. So I recognize a lot of times during the pandemic, like, we were in a global pandemic, that's traumatizing. We don't walk around saying I was traumatized by the pandemic, but it was something that is marked in our life experience as shifting us for the rest of our lives. And so when I'm working with clients, and when our team is working with clients, we have that perspective. We keep our eyes and ears open for, is there anything that could tell us that, hey, I might need additional support around this. Sometimes it's formal mental health support, but sometimes it's just someone to listen and empathize. Like, that's really hard, isn't it? Or I see you. You're doing a really great job. Is there any way I can support you in this? And so I think for us, it's acknowledging there's big T and there's little T trauma, and how that shows up for people is different. For some people, it looks like anger. For some people, it looks like irritation. For some people, it looks like sadness. For other people, you could never know that they're really experiencing something, which is why it's so important for us to build relationships so that I can notice that very subtle difference. Now, you've been kind of up and about and cooking the last couple of weeks, but you don't seem to be cooking this week. Is everything okay? Like, that is it's nuanced. And when you're not in someone's home, you don't necessarily see that. But when you have a relationship with them, you get to be exposed to their world, and vice versa, you can see that.
That's good.
Thank you. And the other question was, I know a lot of, and I'll just speak for the people that I know, don't have the best relationships with their doctor. And some of them just don't feel comfortable a lot of the times. I wonder if you could speak to what you've seen in this space a little bit. What are some things that we can do to feel more empowered in talking to our doctor, or when we're talking to do that?
Yes. I often talk with people about acknowledging white coat syndrome. A lot of us experience it. It's where we actually feel anxious going into the doctor's office. Whether or not you perceive a power dynamic, it's just a lot. You gotta find a parking spot, you gotta get there on time, you might be waiting, you're back here, you want your blood pressure. There's a lot that goes on. And so being able to create a game plan for going into the appointment is what I recommend for people. We talk through questions. What questions do you want your provider to answer for you? Did you understand what they said in the last appointment? Is there anything you needed to reiterate? Did you see anything in your My Chart over the last couple of weeks that's concerning? Or is there anything that's happened in the last couple of weeks that they wouldn't know about that you need to tell them? So thinking through those categories. And then sometimes I practice. Like, I have some clients who are like, we could write it, I won't remember it. Practice, pretend I'm your doctor. And then we do a role play, which is back to social work. Do a role play to figure out how we can best equip them for the language that they need to use and to reiterate the urgency. Because sometimes an appointment you get in, if you don't look like there's any problems, maybe 15 minutes. And you may have been waiting for 30 minutes to talk to this person, or 4 weeks to get an appointment. So really being able to use that time wisely and to your advantage. And I remind clients that you hire your medical professionals, they don't hire you. They're not out here looking for you to find you. Like, you go to their office, you pick the place that you want to give birth. So take that as your part of your power is to say, hey, I need your help, and here's how I need your help.
Love that. Thank you.
So your book is about affirmations. So just how do you find, I found that people have their openness to participating in like practices around affirmations or mindfulness. Like, can you speak to the spectrum of responses and just strategies around that?
Absolutely. That's why I put them in a coloring book, because I would tell people all the time, oh, I really want you to practice affirmations and speak life over your pregnancy. And they're like, okay, that's cute. I'm gonna possibly drink my water and I might do that. But when it is written down in a coloring book form, you have to take time to pull out a writing utensil, and put in some colors. You also have to then acknowledge the words that are there. And so being able to say, you know, I choose to nourish my body. My birth is beautiful just the way that it should be. Or my community will show up in the ways that I ask them to. It may not be something that I would naturally say about myself, but I worked with clients for 8 years and wrote like 100 different affirmations. I said, well, why not just put them down on paper, force them to now color in the papers, and then that gives people a way to incorporate mindfulness, even if they weren't thinking, I am a person who incorporates mindfulness. And so I try to be really creative in our solutions, because we ask a lot of pregnant people. Like, you have to go to work, you gotta feed the kids, you have to cook, you have to keep the house together, you have to keep yourself together, you still have to sleep. That's a lot to ask of anybody. And so I don't want to add anything else to their routine, but I do want to encourage them to take 20 minutes to yourself a day, like at minimum, really an hour, but at least 20 minutes. And even if you spend 5 minutes coloring one page a day, there's 30 something pages in here. And so that over a course of several weeks can help to really shift your mindset and allow you to incorporate language that is going to affirm your experience.
Wow. Wow. Does anyone else have any questions?
Hi, Leah. Thank you for being here today. This is amazing. My question is, if you are a person who does not have the financial resources for a doula, what is your recommendation for how they can kind of still get a little bit of doula help?
Absolutely. So there are lots of resources people just don't always know about. I am in partnership with the Black Doula Project, which is actually based here in DC, and they provide a $1,000 grant to families, no questions asked, for doula support, which can make a significant difference. There's also the Dove Equity Fund, which provides a $1,300 grant towards doula support. Once again, when you fill out an application, it's pretty much no questions asked. I'm a part of a group of doulas lobbying for better private and public insurance coverage across the country to make sure that both birth and postpartum doula support can be incorporated into people's care. But one of the things I recommend is to tap into your village. And so a lot of people plan for a baby shower or a baby moon. That money could be put towards a doula, which could have life-saving implications. But also, at your baby shower, ask everyone to give $20 or $30 towards a doula. If you have even 30 people at a baby shower, each giving $20, makes a big difference. And many of us offer payment plans, we offer sliding scale support. And then I also know I train and mentor doulas, and so new doulas are often looking for clients who will, in exchange for their services, provide a recommendation to support their business. And that's bartering is another way that we often will cover the need for doula support, even if people don't have the financial resources.
Wow, good info. First of all, that was major T. Major. I mean, major. You know how many people will be looking for doulas and don't have a clue at all? Y'all, we just got put on.
I tell everybody, everyone deserves a doula. Everyone may not feel like they can afford a doula, but you can find a doula that will meet your needs. So it might take a little bit of research. Contact me. We have a whole agency of doulas. I also teach and train doulas across the country. So I know folks in New Orleans, Florida, Tennessee, Ohio, who are always looking for clients, and we can match people accordingly.
Give it up for Leah, y'all.
Hi Leah, my name is Maya, and I'm so honored to just hear all of this wisdom and beautiful insight that's coming from you today. My question, you spoke about the kind of the longevity of a typical doula career and how it's so ephemeral. So for you, what are some things that you implement for yourself so that you can continue on your journey as a doula, continue to support people and show up for people the way that you do, but without taxing yourself completely and without burning out?
Thank you. Yes. So the burnout rate, most of us don't last 2 years. And in those 2 years, part of why we don't last more than 2 years is that most of us need a full-time career on top of our doula career. And that's because being able to pay for a doula has not historically been easy for people. and so we have to supplement our income. One of the things that I do is I do have another job. Often I'm working as a consultant or in other positions that allow me the freedom of time to support my clients the ways that I want to. But in addition to that, I decided to mentor and train new doulas because I firmly believe that although I want everyone to have a doula, I'm not the doula for everyone. And so wherever they may be, they need somebody who is properly trained and equipped to support them. Unfortunately, all doula trainings are not equitable or not necessarily the same. And so there are times where people might say they're a doula, but they don't have the same qualifications or trainings to support people in the ways that I think are most necessary, especially being that bridge between the medical community. So I teach and train doulas. I do recommend that people take time off. There are months of the year where I won't take any clients, or I will focus on teaching, or I will focus on other ways to support birthing people. So as a lactation counselor, as a childbirth educator, being a part of the birth work world without necessarily showing up as a birth doula. And I also tell my doulas as a team that folks that I teach that being a doula is a lifelong calling. It's not a one-time event. And so no matter where I go, I'm a doula because I will be advocating for the rights of birthing people. I will be an advocate for maternal health and for reproductive justice. And in each of the career choices that I've made, that has been my common thread. Is no matter where I'm going, that is a part of how I'm showing up in the space.
Any last thoughts, any final thoughts for Leah?
Quick question, a follow-up. Earlier you were mentioning that there is a gathering of minds that are trying to get legislative support, maybe with to gain some progress with the insurance companies. Could you speak a little bit more to that? And is there a call to action that any of us can join to kind of help in furthering those efforts?
Thank you. So recently, the Omnibus Act was passed,
I was gonna ask you about that.
which is a beautiful step forward in making sure that maternal and reproductive health rights are being protected and honored. It does, once again, another step forward is that it makes sure that certain doula services are fully covered with Medicaid insurance. What it doesn't necessarily do is it do that equitably, and so we are in conversation to make sure that training organizations with a focus on Black maternal health and or Indigenous maternal health, which are populations with specified needs because of a trauma-informed racialized lens, making sure that those training organizations are also honored and included in that process as opposed to being ostracized, because that just perpetuates the problem. So that is a part of the ongoing conversation. You can call your delegates, your senators, anybody, and tell them that we need to continue this process. Also because the pay is not equitable for doulas, and so it's still not sustainable as a career. It is a step forward, and we're very proud of that. But paying doulas at a rate that is below the worth of their services or the value of their services does us a disservice because it doesn't allow us to show up for clients appropriately. And so many times, I shared that the grants will cover about $1,000 of doula support, and Medicaid insurance only covers $800. And so somebody would still have to come out of pocket another $200, if not $1,200 for doula support. So it's helpful, but if they really only had $1,000 to begin with, and they were relying on this form of coverage, and now their doula doesn't accept it, it continues that very detrimental cycle. So being well versed in the shifts that are happening, being aligned with understanding access to midwifery care, access to medical care in a hospital, in a birthing center. We are an entire way of life in the maternal and birth work world. And so asking people questions, we're always happy to share, but I'd like to make sure that people understand that the shifts that we're pushing for from a legislative standpoint are to protect people's rights and to give them the choices that they deserve. We're a country built on people's ability to make choices that match them best. Like, at the end of the day, that's what our country was founded on in many ways. And so if that is what we inherently stand on, we need to protect that for everybody. And we need to make sure that that is equitably accessible when it comes to our health care for maternal folks, or people in the maternal health care field.
Love it, thank you. That was great.
What's it called? so much. Give yourselves a round of applause. Y'all are a great audience, I must say. Like, the enthusiasm was shouting up here. If you would like to make a purchase of the New Mama's Affirming Coloring Book, you can get one back there at the register. We got crayons. Y'all can color some pages today. Thank you for Kayla for providing these crafts. We are so happy that y'all joined us today, and don't forget to pick this up for a birthing person in your life. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you, Christina. I'd also like to share, we have a new Dad's Affirming Coloring Book that will be coming out in June. So we did not forget the dads.
No,
It's very
we
important to
didn't
include
forget
them as well. And so thank you all for being here. We'll be sharing that information with you all and can distribute as well. But it's important that we include the dads too, because they are an integral part of the healthy birth experience.
Thank you for hosting.
Yes,
You're
thank you.
wonderful.
Thank you all so much. Thank you to everyone who watched.